Well, good morning. My name is Dave Hunsinger. Welcome to this February 11th episode of Keystroke Live, where today we will be talking about the Purchase Manager. We've been doing this for over 3 years now, and we've done different aspects of the Purchase Manager, but never talked about it in general. So I will do that today. Just as a reminder, every Wednesday, 10 a.m., same login information. And the Purchase Manager is basically used to replenish or add inventory. So there are 3 ways in Keystroke to add inventory. One way is to manually change the quantity on hand, which by default we lock you out of because you don't have any tracking. Another way is you can use the variance function, which posts differences in quantity on hand, and you do have some tracking, but you don't have any price or cost control. And then the best way is the Purchase Manager, where you have price control and can track exactly what came in and from what vendors. There are 3 types of transactions in the Purchase Manager. There are purchase orders, that's the record of goods requested. Purchase invoice is a record of goods received. And then there's a reserved order that is basically just kind of a notes, a play order, so you can kind of look at what the possibilities are. So if I switch over to Keystroke, and here we have the Purchase Manager. It looks and feels a lot like the Sales Manager. So once you've mastered the Sales Manager, you're ready to go for the Purchase Manager. I can hit Insert here. I'm just using our sample data. And if I pick the First Shop Online Movies, I get information about that vendor. I can always hit F3 here to see what emails, address, contact. There's the comment field on all the vendors, so you can hit Shift Enter if you want to look at any notes. And this is a purchase order, so I can look up an item, and if I can, I'll page down here and hopefully find a movie, and I'm going to order 10 of those. And I'm just going to keep this simple. This is the purchase order. You see you have information in the detail box, what my last cost was, information there. I can hit F10. And this is showing me on the complete sales screen, you see on the left-hand side, I have the order information, $139. And the invoice record of goods received, I'm not receiving anything. So I'm just going to hit OK and save this. I could print it if I wanted to. Now I can just hit Control Page Up to get back to that order. And let's say I am going to receive 2 of these. Now if I look at it, my order is still $139.50. My invoice subtotal is $27.90, and just for sake of it, let's say it's kind of an old movie. Now I'm going to get them for $8.95 from my vendor rather than $13.95. And here, we'll do one other thing. I'm just going to hit F3 on this line item. That pulls up the inventory record where I see the average cost is $13.95. Last cost is $13.95. Keystroke uses average cost costing, or to find the cost. Other options are LIFO or FIFO, last in, first out, first in, first out. But we use average costing. That way you're averaging what you have in inventory. You're not tracking a specific cost for each of the 10. I have 10 on hand here of this item. So each of the 10 doesn't have a cost assigned to it. I have 10. My average cost was $13.95, so that means I spent $139.50 over those 10 inventory items. So I'm just going to hit F10 to save that. Now it's going to be $8.95, so that's going to change my average cost. I'm receiving 2, so my quantity on hand is going to go from 10 to 12, and then it's going to average in the 2 at $8.95 with 10 at $13.95. So I will go ahead and save this. The other thing is there are payments here. These payments don't really do anything. If you put it on account, it doesn't go to your accounts payable in your accounting. It's just kind of a note to yourself. So just be aware. I tend to just not use payments at all on purchase orders, but sometimes, running my business, if I order something, I might put a payment on there because I know I paid for it with my American Express card. So I'm just going to hit F10 here, save it. And so now when I hit Control Page Up, I've got this order number 26, but it says 26A. The A indicates there has been one invoice created from it. If that was 26E, that would have mean I have created 5 invoices from that one purchase order. You might get that if you order 500 items from a vendor and they come in, a few this week, a few next week, a few the week after. If I look at the actual inventory item, you see my last cost has been changed on the left-hand side there under pricing to $8.95 because that was the last cost I paid for it. The average cost went from $13.95 to $13.12. It went down a little bit because over those 12 inventory items, I have 10 that I paid $13.95 for, 2 that I paid $8.95, but it averages those out. So that way, you know the average price of what's in inventory. Sometimes you'll see that number go negative, and that would happen for a couple of reasons. One is if you drive your quantity on hand negative, you can do that because when you drive your quantity on hand negative, Keystroke is kind of predicting what the next cost will be just based on what the current one is. And if the cost was less or more, it's got to make up some ground on those ones that were sold into the negative. The other thing you might see is if you had one on hand that you paid $1 for, so you had $1 worth of cost, and then you bought 10 of the same item, and you paid 25 cents each for those, you're going to have 11 items with $3.50. Well, so that would just drive your cost very low to like 11 cents or something like that. So there's driving it negative, drastic changes can do that, but that average costing is correct. There are a few settings here. If I go into transaction, just like everywhere in Keystroke, there are parameters, and we have in Purchase Manager is the only place the line items, entry, and display are all kind of typical, how the cursor travels, what you see. But then we also have update here, and so this is, do you update last cost or do you not want to update last cost? Do you update average cost? Do you not want it? And there's a few extra ones here like the reset average cost. That means if your average cost goes negative, it'll just reset the average cost to the last cost. That way it doesn't look strange, but it can affect what your average cost, how accurate your average cost is, because you're kind of throwing out that information. But if your driving quantity is negative, it makes things look better by doing that reset average cost. And then you can do cost of goods sold adjustments, and you can have the costs update on those adjustments. You can also distribute discount and shipping for more of a landed cost if you're offshore and you have to pay a lot for that too. So just be aware, these are here. You can always hit F1 in Keystroke and it gives you a detailed explanation of all of those update parameters. So now if I go in here and let's say I'm going to receive 3, and save that. Now if I pull up my purchase order, I have 5 remaining on order. I can hit Shift F9 here, and it shows you my original order quantity and how many I've received. Hit F9 again, and then I get some price options here. If I want to change my price, what my markup is, what my cost is, get a little bit information. Hit F9 again. Now I'm looking at new price and profit. So you get a choice of doing a few different things there. And if I hit F3 to look at my inventory item, you'll see my average cost is $12.28 now. I've got 15 on hand. And if I go ahead, I'm just going to say receive them all. Save it. Now I hit Control I, so I'm looking at a purchase invoice, not a purchase order. And I can hit Control Page Up. I've got 26C with 5, 26B with 3, and 26A with 2. Now, they're all dated today, but in reality, they might be dated a couple days apart or a week apart when the inventory came in. So you have an accurate reflection of when you posted the order, when you requested the goods versus when they arrived and what days they arrived. So you're trying to make these purchase orders represent reality as closely as possible. And if I look at the inventory now, I've got 20 on hand. My average cost is down to $11.45 now. So I've driven it down because I paid $13.95 for 10 and $8.95 for 10. So I've kind of split the difference on what the average cost is. Remember, when you sell an item, it grabs the average cost at the time you sell it, and that is saved on the sales invoice. So it uses that to determine your cost and profit when you're looking at sales reports. And then I'm just going to go ahead and clear this. So I'm back on my purchase order, and I'm going to pull up the Acme computer technology. We have something called auto order, and it'll automatically suggest order quantities for you. I'm going to show you a little bit how that works. It can be very handy. And I can come up here and say special and auto order, or just hit Shift F8. So that brings up a screen where I can pick what vendor I want to use, how I want the items listed. Do I want them by stock number? Well, I probably want product code, because that's what the manufacturer identifies them as, and they sort their invoices by that product code. I can filter if I want to exclude certain items. And then remember, with Keystroke, each inventory item saves up to 4 vendors. So you can say, okay, if they're anywhere in there, or I only want it when that was the last vendor I purchased from, if you have one item that you purchase from a lot of different vendors. So I'm just going to go ahead and select OK, and boom, I get some items on my purchase order: staples, jump drive, all kinds of things. Now, how did it know 8, 8, 10? What's going on there? Well, let's just look at these staples again. I'm just going to hit F3 to pull up the item, and then I've got my price and costs here, but I'm going to click on order data here in the bottom right corner, and then I get my quantity on hand is 12, and my minimum quantity is 20. So what the auto order, or the critical list, if you're running a report, says, okay, my on hand is less than the minimum. This item needs to be ordered. So I'm going to go look at the order quantity and order that many. Well, here the order quantity is -20, which means if it was +20, it would just order 20 every time. Things you order in cases, candy bars, that kind of thing. But -20 means order enough to get me to 20. So because my on hand is 12 and my order quantity is -20, it's going to want to order 8, which you see I have 8 there. Now if I look at the jump drive, let's see if I can get one that's got a positive quantity on it. No, that's a -15. What about this one? So here with our standard stapler, quantity on hand is 10, the minimum is 15, so I need to order it because I have less than my minimum. My order quantity is 10 because I always order these these staplers in boxes of 10. So it's going to order 10 whether I have 14 on hand or 6 on hand. It's going to order 10 every time. This can be a very handy way of doing a suggested order, and again, you can also run a inventory database report, and it's called the critical list. And basically, that critical list is anything where the quantity on hand is less than the minimum quantity, so that you can see, okay, here's everything in my inventory that I need to order. So it's again a very handy way to move around and create suggested orders. Some people like to do it. Some people still like putting in the item by items. So if I'm going to go ahead and hit F10 and F10 again to save this. Remember, then I can just hit Control Page Up to pull up that order. And I can change the quantities. I can receive some. I can delete an item. And if I save, like say, okay, I really don't need the jump drives, I can hit Control Backspace to get rid of them. And then if I save it again, it's only saving those changes I made. And then I can receive them just by pulling up this order and filling in the received quantity. We also have a receive open orders, or kind of a loading dock receiving functions, where here I could just sit and say, and scan items, scan items, scan items, and it would receive them on the, I can load them in there, and then it would receive everything on the purchase order. Then I could pull up my purchase order. I just got to hit escape here, and what would be on that purchase order are only the things I hadn't received yet. Not used a whole lot, but it is another way of getting items into the inventory. And that is, remember, you've got vendors just like customers, only they're people you purchase from. And you've got the inventory items that your Keystroke is all about inventory control, which is not only keeping track of what you sell, but also keeping track of what you buy. You tie those together, you get the right inventory at the right time, and that helps a business thrive. So with that, I am going to unmute everyone, and I am happy to answer any questions you might have. And let me see here if I go back to my PowerPoint. Any questions about the Purchase Manager? Well, I know that was a lot of information quickly, but this video will be available on YouTube. Nick tries to get them posted in the next day or two, so if you want to go back and review, it will be available there. Thank you for attending, and we're going to talk about purchase scripts or scripting in Purchase Manager next week with Lynn. So thank you for attending, and